Uncle Egg is a monkey.
An amazing intro by Remy, the little Moomin, and we're ready today for some more price action analysis here for Bitcoin. In fact, lots has happened since we've last spoken, and in today's video, we'll be going over future targets and sort of how the picture is evolving here, because there are a couple of setups that are still brewing, and well, it's time to update on that. So, without further ado, let's jump into it first, starting with some daily price statistics on what day is it? It is Thursday. Thank God for the highlighting effect right there, caretaker. I'm massively hopped up on caffeine. I overdosed today after a long flight. Anyways, Thursday actually is the most likely weekday to be a red day, with 56.06% of all Thursdays closing negatively, with an average loss, relatively low actually. And by the way, this data is being harvested from when the bull market began in 2023. If we are to look at the range for Thursday, for the positive closing Thursdays, close to 2% has been gained, and on the losing side, again, negative 1.8. So if we're to put that into terms of price action here, we can see that the upper end of this boundary would be about 121, actually about 121 even, which is going to pop up a little bit later. And then also to the downside, we do see about 116,500. So anything between these two ranges really doesn't make all that of a difference for the general trend of Bitcoin, or just the general direction of Bitcoin here. And just want to show again, Bitcoin is trading in these massive ranges. We're dealing with big numbers. We're dealing with a highly volatile asset, especially a highly volatile asset that has been consolidating for a long time and getting its first real breakout. So moving on from there, I do want to get into the lower term timeframes, looking at the 4-hour time frame right here, and acknowledge that there is a bit of a pattern going on. What is it? It is a falling pizza. No, it is a falling wedge. No, it's Superman. No, it's actually a falling wedge. But typically falling pizzas do break out to the upside. At least there is a slightly higher probability of that than breaking out to the downside. But most importantly with this, it gives us an area of interest for an implied move when we do get confirmation of this actual breakout. So looking at that and first going over what would effectively confirm an actual breakout here, we need to see a closure above the 16th of July's high. That's just Wednesday's high, by the way. And that is what do you know? 120. And if we were to see a breakout above there, I would be looking for Bitcoin to make a nice move up, likely to slightly new optimize at least, and perhaps a little bit more, at about 123,500, 123,600. Again, using the price action pivots indicator right here to get these trendline extensions and these, and these general areas of interest upon that breakout. Now, of course, to the downside, still the area of interest is going to be about 115-ish, 115.5 to 116. Again, kind of coinciding here with that Thursday statistics level to the downside. Again, it doesn't need to be exactly on target there, but close enough. Again, coming in around the same region. So I do like the confluence right there, and ultimately, as long as Bitcoin's between those two boundaries, there's really not much new things, but that is okay because important things are happening. In fact, mostly the altcoins are the ones that are doing something of interest right now. And that is, in my opinion, kind of a good sign for the overall cycle, just because you expect that when Bitcoin goes into a consolidation after breaking to new all-time highs, that the altcoins are going to take that time to actually follow through as well. And it does seem like we're seeing that. And as long as we continue to see that, that is a good sign of a healthy market that is likely to continue until it doesn't, of course. Anyways, yes, so we've gone over the very low term timeframes right here. Now let's go over some of the higher term timeframe setups, as well as general areas of interest for a potential breakout. Again, in the short term, if Bitcoin were to break above about 120, I'd be looking for about 123.5. Again, that's a relatively short term move. And I do want to also acknowledge that the 5-day time frame right here, which is not going to be closing tonight, but closing tomorrow night, is still holding within this general channel that it's been following since, back in March, actually. And the upper boundary of that very likely is going to be a major area of interest on the higher term timeframes if Bitcoin does get that continuation. So now I'm switching from lower term timeframes to higher term timeframes. Again, if Bitcoin breaks out to the upside, you're looking at, somewhere around 123 in the short term, and very likely it does find its way somewhere to the upper boundary of this trend line at some point, maybe 10, 15, 20 days from there. In fact, if we go over a setup a little bit later, we can come up with some areas of interest and timing for that as well. But as of right now, you can see that the upper boundary is crawling its way up above about 133,000 US dollars. Crazy number, actually crazy number to say. And with each and every passing closure, that's that's going up like another $1,000, like kind of fucking crazy, honestly. Anyways, yes, so there's that and there's that. But moving on from there, I want to get into this 5-day 5 EMA setup. We're using the Quant Prime service over here to set up this strategy. And again, if you're not familiar with it, it's a super simple strategy. If you've been on this channel even for the past couple months, you've seen this fire off plenty, or maybe not plenty of times, but you've seen it fire off successfully at least one time, which was actually calling the move from about $83,500 closing at 106, although Bitcoin did trade a little bit higher from there. Anyways, this setup, again, is just opening a position whenever Bitcoin closes above that red 5 EMA on the 5-day time frame. And then whenever Bitcoin closes below that same moving average, it closes that. Could you trade it a little bit better? Sure. But if we're just looking at this to be played in the way that we are going over right here, apparently, hey, what? Why is it not doing it? Hold on. That's very strange. That should not be happening. Okay. Don't know what the hell's going on here. I'm dealing with a new setup, by the way, so perhaps that is the issue. Maybe that is the issue. Anyways, I can tell you from memory that the average winning trade from this particular setup takes 10 bars on average, which is 50 days, 10 bars on a 5-day time frame. And the average return is about 37.5%. So let's see what that would mean in terms of timing and also in terms of price. In terms of timing, that would put us into kind of the middle portion of August, assuming Bitcoin does confirm continuation. Again, I'd be looking for that 4-hour setup that we spoke about at the beginning of this video to kind of confirm that. And if we were to look at about, 30% to the upside, that puts Bitcoin in the mid 130s, right? So we do see multiple things kind of coming at that same number. And again, the sort of timing of interest, let's say, would be around mid 30s. Maybe it's a little bit more, maybe it's a little bit less. But again, we're looking for just guidelines for this. Because this is a rather, impressive move. On top of that, I did want to get into, and apparently I must have deleted my chart here. Again, dealing with a new setup here. We're actually in Arizona right now. But let me bring up my damn layouts. Why? What's going on here? Okay, it's very strange. Don't know why that's happening, but yes. Okay, beautiful. All right, let's bring up our 5-day volatility versus stochastic momentum setup. This one is actually very close to firing off. Again, the 5-day time frame will close tomorrow night, and as of right now, we would have the conditions met just barely, like just by a ball sack here, barely, if Bitcoin were to finish the 5-day time frame setup above 15 percentile on the BBWP. So again, if you're not familiar with this setup, it's very simple as well, although a little bit more intensive than the prior one that we just looked at. But anytime that we do see 5-day BBWP, which represents volatility, which is the dispersion of returns, get below 15 percentile, which we call full-on contraction, and then expand above 15 percentile. So first condition needs to get it below, and then second condition needs to get above on a closing basis, very, very importantly. Then we can reference the direction of the 5-day stochastic oscillator for a very, very high probability big move in that direction. And as of right now, if Bitcoin were to close this in its current position for Friday, then we would see those conditions met, and the 5-day time frame continues to show upside pressure here on the 5-day stochastic oscillator as long as Bitcoin is above 118,000 US dollars, which right now it's about $500 above. So you can see that 118 is kind of like a midline for the short term, relevant for Friday. If Bitcoin does confirm above there, again, we could extend those long-term targets significantly more, most likely. But I'll wait for that to fire off before I speak about it a little bit more, because I don't want these setups to be conflated with each other. But just want to show in this video how they sort of bleed into each other. Again, all hinging upon that very beginning with the short-term time frame 4-hour setup right here, based off of this nice and healthy pattern as it stands right now. Anyways, yes, moving on from there, I also wanted to get into and follow up on the 3-week HPDR, because I do think that this helps. Kind of get an understanding, or at least a bias of what's most likely to happen over these next 3 weeks, basically. And if you're not familiar with this setup, it is a very, very simple setup as well. Basically, anytime that Bitcoin has reclaimed the median on the 3-week HPDR, which it did in the most recent closure right here, and again, the median is what my cursor is currently tracing on, this very, thin, I guess, white line. Then Bitcoin has gotten a pretty sizable move, typically somewhere at least around the red circle. If we go through the past iterations, so I really want to kind of dial down on this one because I think it'll help understand like what this should look like if it is going to play out in that fashion. So now I'm speaking directly to the people who are looking for, a big sizable pullback on Bitcoin, and I'll mark off with these green vertical bars these past iterations, and you can see that on this past one here in October when Bitcoin reclaimed, Bitcoin really did not pull back almost at all. I mean, yes, there was a very slight wick to the downside here, obviously, but Bitcoin was more or less straight up until it did hit that same region between the 50% level and the 61.8 level, as you see right here. Did take some time as well. Anyways, same thing over here in 2023 October. You can see on that first reclaiming bar, Bitcoin was straight up. I mean, no real pullback that was identifiable there. And this one, didn't just stop at those two major areas of interest. It continued to ride it all the way up. And yes, that can happen, I suppose, but I wouldn't be getting super aggressive here just personally. Anyways, another iteration right here. We do see Bitcoin reclaims. Again, kind of a shallow pullback, but really not much as Bitcoin does head upwards and onwards from there. Yes, it did get a slight wick to the downside right here, but if you're looking for a big pullback here, I do think that's unlikely to play out, especially as long as Bitcoin's holding that 4-hour setup. And we'll talk about fairly conditions in just a moment. I mean, it's basically the 4-hour setup again, but same thing over here. This one, first reclaiming bar, boom. Second one pulls back a little bit, but straight up to the next target, as you can see. And then same thing over here, reclaims, no pullback, boom, all the way up. So if Bitcoin does get a pullback, it's likely to be quite shallow. We have already seen a somewhat shallow pullback. And I would even go as far to say that if Bitcoin really pulls back more than what you're seeing, on this current candle, maybe that does call into question the legitimacy of this current rally. But again, putting two and two together with all of these setups coalescing with each other, I do think that, I still think that there's just a higher probability of an upside move. And again, it is generally a good sign that altcoins are taking this time to rally while Bitcoin consolidates. Generally a good thing. Anyways, again, for the lower term timeframes, I do think that a lot of this hinges upon Bitcoin to effectively hold, let's just call it 115.5, at least on a 4-hour time frame closing basis. And until then, it's just waiting for Bitcoin to kind of fill this out. And does it break above 120 first or below about 115.5 first? Again, my bias, but those are the two major areas of interest in the short term that would effectively confirm whether this thing is actually breaking out and likely to follow that upwards trajectory, or if it's actually going to break down. And now let's talk, very quickly about the downside targets if it were to fail, because, that is possible. I just think it's lower probability, but lower probability doesn't mean a 100% certainty, obviously. Anyways, if Bitcoin were to break down, look, I think the most obvious target here is about 110-ish, 110, give or take $500 from that number, which is a decent move, obviously. And kind of some big sticker shock on that as well, just because Bitcoin, again, is at such a, big number. That's like a $5,000 move, right? Anyways, yes, I think we pretty much got everything that I wanted to speak about in this video. Maybe let's go quickly over the most recent quantum wave band setups. Again, we spoke about these ones here. It did really, really well in early July, stacking up a bunch of wins with each other. Took a nice loss earlier this week on Monday, but, giving back some of those gains. Again, it's going to happen. Nothing's going to be 100% win rate all the time. It is actually in a long position right now as well. It opened at about 118.5. And again, if you are using this this script and this strategy, you don't need to trade it exactly as it's as it's suggesting. You can use it as more of like a guideline, if you will. Perhaps getting a better entry in this case. There was a slightly better entry right here, at least thus far. Maybe it does pull back a little bit more. Anyways, just showing the strategy tester off, even with that loss that we did see most recently. Again, it's about the long-term consistent results. I just want to continue to show this for people with full transparency, because you are going to take losses from time to time. Obviously, it does have a 68.5% strike rate, which means every trade should be a winner, right? No, of course not. But the more and more trades that we do take, the more and more that this continues to work out in our favor. As you can see, since we started showing this, I think it's been like, I don't know, half a year now almost, something like that. Anyways, yes. that is where I will leave things for today. You can try all of these scripts, all of these indicators pretty much for free for 7 days in the Teachable link in the description below if you are interested. Check it out, see if it's for you, see if it's not for you. As always, that is going to be the best way, the most transparent way to see these things. Anyways, I'll be signing off on that note. Like I said, I'm massively underslept at this point, running on significant amounts of caffeine, but that's okay. I should be fine, hopefully by Friday, because I do expect Friday is going to be a day of move, let's say, again, with that 5-day setup really brewing. And I would really be expecting Bitcoin to close above those very specific numbers that we spoke about for tomorrow night's Friday's closure on the 5-day. If Bitcoin continues to remain above there, basically what I'm saying is Bitcoin is significantly more likely to fall through to the upside. If Bitcoin is closing below about 118 by the end of Friday, then I would start to give the downside a little bit more of its fair due. But for right now, probabilities still do favor the upside. And that's where we'll end things for today. As always, massive thank you for joining in. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.